The Galactic Council's deep space sensors picked up something unusual. A massive object was moving toward the outer borders of their territory. At first, the analysts dismissed it as a drifting asteroid, but as more data arrived, their confidence crumbled. This was no rock. It was a ship, a warship. The control room of the High Command filled with tension as holograms displayed the vessel's energy readings. The numbers made no sense. The ship's power signature was off the charts, far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Murmurs of confusion and concern spread among the officers. No known species had the capability to build something like this. The Supreme Chancellor of the Council, a towering reptilian being with deep golden eyes, observed the readings in silence. Then, a message arrived from the Science Division. The warship's design had been identified. The result sent a shockwave through the entire chamber. It belonged to humans. For a moment, no one spoke. The very idea was absurd. Humans were a minor species, barely advanced enough to travel beyond their own solar system. Their ships were weak, outdated, and inefficient. How could they have built something so powerful? A communication officer quickly scanned for distress signals or any sign of a malfunction. Perhaps the ship was stolen. Perhaps it was an accident. But the truth was unavoidable. This was no lost relic. This warship was fully operational, and it was heading straight toward them. A fleet was immediately dispatched to intercept the unknown vessel. The Galactic Council needed answers. The alien commanders aboard their warships prepared their weapons, just in case. As the fleet moved closer, they finally got a visual. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was dark, sleek, and heavily armored, moving with a silent, terrifying grace. Its engines were emitting almost no detectable energy, something that should have been impossible. No known species could hide power readings at this level. Then something even more disturbing happened. The ship vanished. Every scanner, every radar, every detection system lost track of it in an instant. The alien commanders exchanged nervous glances. It was still out there, somewhere in the void, but it was completely invisible to their technology. Before they could react, a transmission came through, deep, calm, and filled with an unnatural authority. "You are not alone anymore." Panic erupted across the fleet. Warnings were sent back to the Council. This was not a simple human vessel. This was something else, something they were not prepared for. Then, just as suddenly as it had disappeared, the warship reappeared right in front of the alien fleet. It had moved faster than any ship should be able to. Before anyone could respond, the human vessel activated something. A pulse of energy spread out, disabling every alien ship's shields for a split second, long enough to send a warning. It could have destroyed them all. But it didn't. The Galactic Council had always seen humans as weak, insignificant. Now, for the first time in history, they realized how wrong they had been. And as the warship continued forward, heading deeper into alien territory, one thing became clear. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. Whispers of fear spread across the Galactic Council. The arrival of the human warship was not just an anomaly. It was a challenge, an undeniable message that humanity had evolved beyond their expectations. Inside the grand hall of the Council, the leaders of the most powerful alien species gathered in urgent discussion. The Supreme Chancellor, his reptilian scales twitching with unease, listened as his advisors argued. Some believed this was a misunderstanding, that humanity had simply stumbled upon advanced technology by accident. Others were not so hopeful. "This ship is not an accident," a high-ranking strategist said. "Its movements were precise. Its power was undeniable. If humanity has built one, they have built more." Silence followed. The possibility was too dangerous to ignore. If humans truly possessed an entire fleet of these warships, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift overnight. As the debate continued, more reports flooded in. The human warship had reached the edge of a heavily fortified alien outpost, but instead of attacking, it simply hovered there, as if observing. The outpost's defenses were immediately activated, massive plasma cannons locking onto the unknown vessel. But before they could fire, their targeting systems failed. Screens flickered, alarms blared. A strange energy pulse had scrambled every weapon system. Then, the warship sent another message, one that made the outpost commander's blood run cold. "We are watching." The message was broadcast across multiple frequencies, ensuring that every major faction in the galaxy heard it. No threats, no demands, just a warning. Panic erupted among the various alien governments. The Council convened once again, but this time, fear replaced logic. The Supreme Chancellor attempted to regain order, but the room was in chaos. The humans should be crushed before they grow stronger, one warlord roared. If they have this power, an attack could mean extinction for us, another argued. Meanwhile, hidden deep in a classified research facility, the brightest scientists of the Galactic Council desperately analyzed the warship's energy signature. The results only deepened the crisis. The ship's core was emitting power levels beyond any known technology. But the most terrifying discovery was its efficiency. It was decades ahead of even the most advanced civilizations. Every known species in the galaxy had been slowly improving their technology over centuries, pushing forward at a steady pace. Humanity, however, had made an impossible leap in an unreasonably short time. How did they develop this? One scientist whispered, "This is not natural progress. Either they have discovered something we cannot understand, or they have been hiding their true potential all along." The Supreme Chancellor received the report and felt a rare emotion grip his mind: doubt. For generations, humanity had been ignored, treated as a minor species. The Galactic Council had dismissed them as unimportant. Now, they had no choice but to pay attention. A final attempt was made to communicate. A diplomatic envoy was sent toward the warship, escorted by a fleet of heavily armed cruisers. This time, the warship did not vanish. It remained visible, waiting. The envoy hailed the vessel, sending a simple request: "State your purpose." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the human ship responded, "We are here to see who stands against us." Before the envoy could ask more, the warship moved, faster than anything the aliens had ever seen. In an instant, it was gone, leaving behind only the weight of its warning. Fear spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Humanity was no longer a forgotten species in the shadows. They were rising, and every empire, every fleet, and every ruler now faced the same terrifying question: what happens when humans decide to strike? The galactic fleet had never been humiliated like this before. Their best warships had been paralyzed, their defenses rendered useless, and their leaders left without answers. The human warship had vanished once again, leaving nothing but fear in its wake. The Council demanded immediate action. A high-priority emergency meeting was called, attended by the most powerful rulers of the known galaxy. The Supreme Chancellor sat at the head of the massive circular chamber, his reptilian claws tapping against the stone table. His golden eyes scanned the faces of those gathered, each one a leader of an empire that had ruled over humanity for centuries. And now, for the first time, they were afraid. "They are testing us," an elder of the Vornar Alliance growled, his thick blue tendrils twitching with frustration. "They come to our space, disable our fleets, and then disappear as if they are ghosts. This is an act of war." "War," scoffed a representative of the Seraph Dominion, a pale, winged being with glowing silver eyes. "Against a species that can disable our strongest warships without firing a single shot. That is not war. That is suicide." The argument continued, voices rising, tempers flaring. No one had an answer. For all their technological superiority, they had been caught completely off guard. Then, an alarm echoed through the chamber. A priority transmission had just arrived, from the front lines. The human warship had returned. The Supreme Chancellor's claws dug into the table as he ordered the message to be played. A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a trembling alien officer from one of the Galactic Fleet's patrol ships. Behind him, warning lights flashed red, and the distant hum of alarms filled the air. "The ship is here," the officer gasped, his eyes wide with panic. It's just sitting there. Not moving. Not responding." "Then destroy it," someone in the chamber growled. The officer hesitated. "We tried. We locked weapons, targeted its hull. But the systems won't let us fire." Silence. The Supreme Chancellor's grip tightened. "Explain." The officer swallowed hard. "It's like the ship is inside our systems. Every time we try to attack, our own computers shut us down." A new voice interrupted the broadcast. Deep, calm, and filled with a quiet authority. It came from the warship. "We suggest you do not try again." The officer's face paled as static filled the screen. Then the transmission cut off. A cold chill ran through the chamber. They had seen countless species rise and fall. They had crushed rebellions, enslaved worlds, and destroyed entire civilizations. But never had they encountered something like this. The Supreme Chancellor forced himself to speak. "Where is the ship now?" A nervous technician checked the latest scans. It's moving deeper into our territory. Slowly, as if it wants us to follow," the Chancellor finished grimly. A decision had to be made. The Galactic Council could not afford to show weakness. If they allowed this warship to roam freely, humanity would know they had the upper hand. They could not let that happen. The order was given. A fleet of 50 warships was dispatched, one of the largest fleets ever mobilized. They would track the human warship, surround it, and force it to surrender. If it resisted, they would obliterate it. The hunt began. The alien fleet moved through space in tight formation, their sensors scanning every inch of the void. The human warship had slowed down, almost as if waiting for them. When the fleet finally caught up, they spread out, encircling the lone vessel from all sides. The alien commanders stared at the image on their screens. The human ship remained silent, motionless, unafraid. A final transmission was sent. "This is the Galactic Fleet," the lead commander declared. "You are surrounded. Power down your weapons and surrender your ship immediately." No response. The commander clenched his fists. "You have 10 seconds to comply." Still, the human ship remained still. 5 seconds. Silence. The commander gritted his teeth. "Open." Before he could finish, the warship moved. In an instant, it shot forward, impossibly fast, breaking through the encirclement like a blade slicing through water. The alien fleet scrambled to react, firing everything they had. Beams of plasma, torpedoes, and railgun slugs rained down on the fleeing vessel, but not a single shot hit. The warship blinked in and out of existence, dodging every attack with perfect precision. The aliens had never seen such speed, such control. It was as if the ship knew their every move before they made it. Then, without warning, the warship stopped. It hovered in place, its dark hull reflecting the distant stars. The alien fleet hesitated, waiting, unsure of what would happen next. A soft hum filled the void. The warship charged something. A glow began to form at its core, spreading across its structure like veins of fire. The alien commanders panicked. They had no idea what was happening, but every instinct screamed danger. "Pull back," the lead commander shouted. Too late. A single pulse of energy exploded from the human warship. Not a weapon, not an attack, but something far worse. Every ship in the fleet shut down. Engines failed. Weapons went offline. Power cores flickered and died. The entire fleet, 50 of the strongest warships in the galaxy, was left drifting in space like useless metal husks. The human warship did not fire a single shot. It simply turned and continued forward, leaving the helpless fleet behind. And as it disappeared once again, a final message was broadcast to every ship, every planet, every ruler in the galaxy. This is only the beginning. The aftermath of the battle, or rather, the humiliation, was felt across the entire galaxy. 50 of the most advanced warships had been rendered powerless, their crews left drifting in the void, unable to do anything but watch as the human warship vanished into the darkness. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Every major power had been forced to acknowledge a terrifying truth. They were not in control anymore. Panic spread across the stars. Worlds that had once dismissed humanity as an insignificant species now whispered in fear. How had they done this? Where had this technology come from? And most importantly, what did humanity want? The Supreme Chancellor sat in his private chamber, staring at the reports in front of him. His golden eyes, usually filled with confidence, now reflected something he had never felt before: uncertainty. For centuries, the Council had ruled with absolute authority. Empires bowed before them, rebellions were crushed before they could begin, and no species had ever been able to challenge their might. Until now. The human warship had disabled an entire fleet without firing a single weapon. It had moved faster than anything in recorded history. It had technology that should not exist. And yet, humanity had not attacked. The Chancellor clenched his claws, deep in thought. If the humans wanted war, they could have wiped out the fleet. They could have struck at any of the Council's key planets. But they hadn't. Instead, they had left a message, one that was spreading like wildfire. This is only the beginning. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. A new report had arrived. His breath caught as he read the words. The human warship had been sighted again. Not on the battlefield, not near a military base, but at the heart of the Council's domain, the capital world itself. Alarms blared throughout the planet as the warship appeared in high orbit. Every defense system locked onto it. Every warship in the sector scrambled into formation. The Council's best forces were prepared to destroy the vessel on sight. But before a single shot could be fired, something terrifying happened. Every weapon on the planet went offline. The planetary shield, a defense system that had never failed in 1,000 years, collapsed in an instant. Every warship, every turret, every energy cannon simply shut down, as if the very laws of physics had turned against them. The warship did not move. It did not attack. It simply floated above the capital world, waiting. Then, a signal was received. It was not a demand, not a warning. It was an invitation. A single message was broadcast to the Council's leadership. Meet us. For the first time in history, the rulers of the galaxy were being summoned, not as conquerors, not as masters, but as guests. The Council had no choice. A heavily guarded delegation was formed, led by the Supreme Chancellor himself. They were taken to the warship, their vessels powerless against the human technology. As they entered the ship, they found themselves in a vast, silent chamber. The walls pulsed with strange energy, the very air humming with unseen power. And in the center of the room stood them, humans. But they were not as the Council remembered. Gone were the fragile, desperate creatures they had once ruled over. These humans stood tall, their eyes cold with knowledge, their movements precise, their very presence radiating control. The leader of the humans stepped forward. His face was unreadable, his expression calm. He did not bow. He did not show fear. He simply spoke. "You have ruled for too long." The words sent a chill through the alien delegation. You have taken what is not yours. Enslaved those who could not fight back. You believe yourselves to be untouchable. The Supreme Chancellor felt his mouth go dry. And what do you want? The human's gaze did not waver. Balance. The Chancellor frowned. You believe you are strong enough to challenge us. The human's lips curled into the faintest hint of a smile. We already have. Before the Chancellor could respond, a screen flickered to life behind the human leader. It showed live footage from across the galaxy. Human warships appearing in multiple star systems, disabling fleets, shutting down planetary defenses, standing watch over worlds that had long suffered under the Council's rule. Not attacking. not conquering, just watching. The realization hit the Chancellor like a thunderstrike. This was not an invasion. This was a warning. The human leader took a step closer, his voice quiet but filled with something undeniable: power. The age of the Council is over. You can adapt, or you can fall. The delegation stood frozen, their minds racing. The Council had thought themselves gods, rulers of all they surveyed. But now, standing before them, was a species that had defied their rule. And humanity was offering them a choice. The Supreme Chancellor clenched his fists. This was not how it was supposed to be. This was not the future they had planned. But deep down, in a part of his mind, he refused to acknowledge. He knew the truth. The future no longer belonged to the Council. It belonged to humanity. The meeting with the humans had shaken the Galactic Council to its core. The rulers of the known universe had stood face to face with the very species they had dismissed for centuries, and for the first time in their long reign, they had been given an ultimatum: adapt or fall. The Supreme Chancellor returned to the capital world in silence, his mind a battlefield of thoughts. The humans had not demanded surrender. They had not attacked. They had simply shown their power, made it clear that the balance of the galaxy had shifted. And yet, the Council refused to accept it. The moment the Chancellor stepped back into the Grand Hall, the arguments began. Some leaders, the cautious ones, urged diplomacy. They recognized that humanity had achieved the impossible, that their technology had surpassed even the greatest civilizations in the galaxy. But others, the old warlords who had built their empires through conquest and control, saw the situation differently. "This is nothing but an illusion," one of the warlords growled, his armored claws tapping against the table. "A trick to make us believe they are stronger than they are." A diplomat scoffed. "You saw the footage. They disabled our fleets without a single shot. Our defenses crumbled before them. Do you truly believe this is a bluff?" "They are still outnumbered," another warlord insisted. "One warship does not make them invincible. If we strike now before they are ready, we can." "Before they are ready," the Supreme Chancellor finally spoke, his voice cutting through the noise. "You still believe they are not ready?" The chamber fell silent. The Chancellor exhaled slowly. "You are all thinking like rulers of the past. You believe power lies in numbers, in fleets, in weapons. Humanity has proven that power is knowledge. They did not destroy us because they did not need to." His golden eyes narrowed. "But if we force their hand, they will." Tension filled the air. The old ways of thinking, the arrogance that had sustained the Council for generations, were crumbling. But not everyone was willing to accept it. Far away, in the shadows of the galaxy, a secret meeting was taking place. Deep within a hidden fortress, the greatest minds of the Council's war divisions gathered. Scientists, strategists, and leaders of the most ruthless factions sat around a glowing table, their faces hard with determination. "We cannot allow this to continue," the general hissed, his cybernetic eyes flickering. "If we do nothing, we are admitting defeat. And if we admit defeat, we are already dead." A scientist nodded, pulling up a series of classified reports. "We have spent decades developing our own experimental technology, weapons beyond what the Council has authorized. If we pool our resources, if we accelerate production, we may stand a chance." A warlord leaned forward. "Then it is agreed. The Council wastes time with diplomacy. We will do what must be done." A decision was made that night. A secret fleet would be built, hidden from the eyes of the Council. The most dangerous minds in the galaxy would come together to create weapons capable of erasing the human threat before it could spread. For the first time, the warlords of the old galaxy united, not against a rebellion, not against a rival empire, but against a single species. Humanity had given them a choice. They had chosen war. Weeks passed. Humanity remained silent, watching. The secret fleet grew, hidden in the farthest reaches of space. The most brilliant scientists worked day and night, crafting weapons designed to counter human technology. And then the time came. The secret fleet moved out, heading toward a system believed to be a human stronghold. Their mission was simple: strike first, wipe out any human presence, and send a message that the Council would not be controlled. 50 warships, armed with experimental weapons, arrived at the system's edge. The commanders expected resistance, a battle, a fight for the future of the galaxy. What they found instead was silence. The planet below was untouched, its cities running as usual. No fleets waited for them. No warships appeared. But something felt wrong. Sensors flickered. Communications cut in and out. It was as if something unseen was interfering with their systems. And then, one by one, the ships began to fail. Not from an attack, not from a visible force, but from something inside their own systems. Alarms blared. Engines shut down. Weapons refused to fire. And then the voice came. "We knew you would come." The warlords froze. It was the same voice that had haunted their transmissions before. Calm, unshaken, in control. You were given a choice. Across the fleet, screens activated, displaying a live feed of a single human warship appearing in orbit. Only this time, it was not alone. A second ship appeared, then a third, then dozens. One of the warlords gasped. They were waiting for us. The realization struck like a hammer. The humans had known about their secret plans. They had allowed them to build their fleet. And now, they had walked directly into a trap. "We hoped you would choose peace," the voice continued. "But we expected this." The warlords screamed orders, desperate to fire, to retreat, to do something. But it was too late. The human warships did not attack. They simply watched as the enemy fleet shut down completely. And then one final message was sent. "You still do not understand. You never had a chance." The Galactic Council's last hope of resistance had vanished. The war was over, and humanity had won without firing a single shot. Panic spread across the Council's hidden war rooms as reports flooded in from the secret fleet. Their forces had been neutralized without a single battle. Not destroyed, not attacked, just shut down. The warlords, the masterminds behind the plot, stood frozen. How? How had the humans anticipated their every move? They had taken every precaution, erased every trace of their plans. Yet somehow, humanity had known. The Supreme Chancellor received the report in his private chambers. His claws trembled as he read the details. The Council's last desperate attempt to hold on to power had failed. And now, humanity had absolute control. The great rulers of the galaxy, the species that had dominated for millennia, had been reduced to frightened spectators, watching as their fleets were rendered useless, their weapons obsolete. The Chancellor exhaled slowly, staring out at the endless stars beyond his window. The galaxy had changed, and there was no going back. Meanwhile, aboard the lead human warship, Admiral Kane watched the captured fleet floating helplessly in space. The alien warships were undamaged but lifeless, their systems completely disabled. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Voss, turned to him. "What do we do with them?" Kane's expression was unreadable. "We return them." Voss blinked. "Return them? After what they tried to do?" The Admiral nodded. "Yes. And that's exactly why." Voss hesitated but gave the order. Within moments, the immobilized warships were reactivated, their systems coming back online. The warlords on board scrambled to regain control, expecting an attack, expecting punishment. But none came. Instead, a single message was sent to every ship in the fleet. This was your final lesson. One by one, the warships were released, allowed to retreat back to their homeworlds. The message was clear. Humanity had not conquered them. Humanity had outgrown them. The warlords returned in disgrace, their fleet untouched but their spirits shattered. The council chamber was eerily silent as the survivors reported what had happened. There was no point in arguing anymore. No point in debating. The old ways had died. The Chancellor finally stood, his voice weary but firm. We must meet with them again. No one objected. A delegation was prepared, this time, not as rulers meeting a lesser species, but as students meeting their teachers. The journey to the human warship was different this time. The council's leaders did not walk with arrogance. They did not hold their heads high with the pride of conquerors. They walked with caution, with respect. And when they entered the human chamber once more, they saw the same figure standing there. The human leader did not look pleased. He did not look victorious. He simply waited. The chancellor stepped forward, and for the first time in his long rule, bowed his head. A deep silence filled the room. And then the chancellor spoke the words that would change history forever. "Teach us." The human leader studied him carefully. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. "Then let us begin." The Galactic Council had fallen, but in its place, something new had begun. The galaxy would never be the same again. The rulers of the old order had been humbled. The Galactic Council, once the most feared and powerful force in existence, now stood in the presence of humanity, not as conquerors, not as overlords, but as students seeking wisdom. The Supreme Chancellor felt the weight of the moment as he faced the human leader. "Teach us." The words had left his lips, and there was no taking them back. But humanity did not celebrate. They did not gloat. The human leader simply nodded. It will not be easy. The warlords and diplomats shifted uncomfortably. They had expected demands, conditions, retribution for centuries of oppression. But instead, the humans offered something far more unsettling: a path forward. "Your civilization was built on control," the human leader continued. "You ruled through fear, through power, through crushing those who stood against you. You believed that strength was measured in warships and weapons." His gaze swept across the room, locking onto each council member in turn. "You were wrong." The Supreme Chancellor exhaled slowly. "Then tell us, what is strength?" The human smiled, but it was not a smile of amusement. It was a smile of understanding. Strength is knowing when not to fight. In the days that followed, the council underwent the most radical transformation in its history. The humans did not force their will upon them. They did not dismantle the council or take control of its fleets. Instead, they showed them a different way. They shared their knowledge, technologies that had taken them beyond the need for war, sciences that had allowed them to create, to explore, to evolve beyond the endless cycle of conquest. The warlords struggled to accept it. They had spent lifetimes believing that peace was weakness, that power was the only way to survive. But humanity had flipped the rules of the game. By refusing to fight, they had won. By showing restraint, they had conquered the hearts and minds of an entire galaxy. The message spread like wildfire. Worlds that had once feared the council began to rise, not in rebellion, but in hope. Planets that had been under the boot of oppression saw the cracks in the old order. The species that had been enslaved, the civilizations that had been crushed under the council's rule, began to believe in something new. The council, now reformed, was no longer a ruling empire. It became a gathering of equals. The warlords who refused to change were cast aside. Those who sought to cling to the past vanished into the void, their time over. And humanity. They did not stay to rule. They had never wanted power. They had simply wanted balance. Years passed. The galaxy entered an age unlike any before, an age not of war, but of cooperation. Trade flourished where there had once been battle. Ideas flowed freely between species. Knowledge spread, lifting civilizations that had once been seen as nothing more than pawns in the council's games. Humanity had done the impossible. They had ended an empire without ever firing a single shot. And as the Supreme Chancellor looked up at the stars from his now shared seat of power, he realized something that still shook him to his core. The humans had never been the true threat. The true threat had been their own arrogance, and humanity had saved them from it.